Zimbabwe latest, what we know so far. The military in Zimbabwe has taken control of the country, putting veteran President Robert Mugabe under house arrest and announcing it was targeting criminals around him. Their move follows the firing last week of Vice President Emmerson Mnangagwa, which made First Lady Grace Mugabe front-runner to succeed her 93-year-old husband. The army has denied it is staging a coup and Mr. Mugabe is said to be safe. But the rapid events raise the possibility his dominance over a country he has led since it gained independence could be at an end. Here is what we know what has happened. Military vehicles were spotted on roads leading to the Zimbabwean capital Harare on Tuesday, sparking rumors action would follow. Later, soldiers seized the headquarters of Zimbabwe's national broadcaster ZBC and loud explosions and gunfire were heard. Major General Sibusa Somoyo then read out a statement on national television, assuring the nation that President Mugabe and his family were safe. The military was only targeting what he called criminals around the president, he said, denying that there had been a coup. As soon as we have accomplished our mission, we expect that the situation will return to normalcy, he added. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe is being held at his home and is fine, according to a statement by South Africa's President Jacob Zuma, who spoke to him. Military vehicles have been patrolling Harare and surround key buildings, but the situation there is said to be calm. And what hasn't happened? There has not been any official response from the government to events, nor have we heard directly from President Mugabe or his wife Grace, which analysts say suggests they have lost control of events. And there are no reports of any members of the security forces who remain loyal to Mr. Mugabe intervening to defend him. If they did, events could take a bloodier turn. What has upset those behind this action? This is all about the leadership succession. As Mr. Mugabe's powers finally falter, the people who fought in the 1970s guerrilla war against white minority rule still dominate Zimbabwe's government, and especially its security forces, and they are worried about losing that power and the wealth it generates. Earlier this week, the Army Chief General Constantino Chiwenga warned the military could intervene to halt purges of the governing ZANU-PF that were clearly targeting members of the party with a liberation background. This was obviously a reference to the sacking last week of Mr. Mugabe's once loyal deputy, Mr. Mnangagwa, a former defense minister, spy chief and veteran of the War of Independence. Mrs. Mugabe's supporters are known as Generation 40 or G40, a name which signals a changing of the guard in Zimbabwe, at least partially, 37 years after independence. So this military action is the old guard reasserting its authority. Mr. Mugabe was the political leader of the guerrilla war, so the army has always professed loyalty to him, until he explicitly came out in favor of his wife taking over from him. The rise of Grace Mugabe Mnangagwa, the crocodile who snapped back. Is this a coup? Some observers think so. The army's denial it was carrying out a coup has provoked mirth on social media. The BBC's Southern Africa correspondent Andrew Harding called the move an extraordinary overnight gamble. He sees it as an internal power struggle within ZANU-PF, and whoever emerges victorious can expect a newly purged party to fall obediently into line. He says it is important to remember that Mr. Mugabe is not being challenged by the Western governments he has warned against for decades, or by Zimbabwe's political opposition, or by a mass uprising against economic hardship. How can you tell a coup is happening? What is the mood in the country? Zimbabweans have been posting on Facebook and Twitter that there has been no dramatic effect on normal life. People say that shops have opened as normal, but there are few people on the streets of the capital. Some Zimbabweans spoken to by the BBC have welcomed the news, with one man expressing his thanks to the army for taking out the tyrant. One resident of Harare though told the press association, "I don't think I see how anything could possibly be different. If we wanted to see any change, we would have to assassinate about 5,000 people all feeding from the same trough." Reaction across Africa. The head of the key regional bloc, the African Union, Guinea's President Alpha Conde, said that the crisis seems like coup. He said the AU demanded that constitutional order be restored immediately. In his statement, South Africa's President Zuma said that he was sending a delegation to Zimbabwe to meet President Mugabe and the Zimbabwean Defense Force. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari has called for calm and a respect for the constitution, and said that every attempt should be made to save the country from political instability.